Hello and welcome to the ConneXion webinar series. This is our first of two tracks on today's sessions, and we are joined by some of the leading lights within the trade associations for the global corrugated industry. We are welcoming Mike D'Angelo from AICC. We've got Angelica Christ from FEFCO, Tim Gray from the UK Sheep Plant Association, and Larry Montague from TAPI. Yes. So to the audience, we will start a few questions and we will look forward to feedback from you as and when. We hope you're enjoying the ConneXion virtual exhibition. So Mike, I'd like to come to you first, please, if I may. It's been a really interesting and challenging 7 months since the beginning of the COVID crisis. How has AICC adapted to the various changes in the way that we've been communicating with your members?
First of all, Dan, thank you very much. It's a great pleasure to be here on the ConneXion video with you and my esteemed colleagues, and we're looking forward to a wonderful experience when the exhibition opens up, and thank you for providing this forum. 7 months, it seems more like 7 years, actually, but everyone's been coping. The members have been coping. I almost call it a tale of two copes. They're first hit with this, the box makers as well as the suppliers, and they're scrambling, trying to figure out what the realities are. Here in the U.S., you've got 50 different states that handle things 50 different ways, and not a lot of guidance from the federal government. And you can debate whether that's right or that, as the debate's been going on for that entire 7 months. AICC, for its part, basically tried to make itself as useful to the membership as it could. We put up a daily COVID webpage because things were changing that quickly, so our members could go to the website to find out what's going on, at least as far as we were intuiting it. We also had a weekly COVID video conference that brought in more than 300 participants typically, which is a very high number of participants for an online event for us. It just shows how members were craving information, craving the ability to speak with each other and learn from each other and to help each other out, for that matter. And we delved into a number of programs, which I won't go into detail on unless you want us to, that basically brought everybody together so that we could move forward in the best way possible, helping each other out.
And Tim, if we jump back across the pond to the UK, I'm very aware that in those early days, there were quite a few webinar sessions that the UK Sheep Plant Association put on for its members. And it was a great honor to be actually involved in some of those sessions. But Tim, how fast was it after the various government lockdowns occurred that your members out to you as an association to say, we need support?
Yeah, we were acutely aware that we were due a conference and that wasn't going to happen. So I think it was the second week in March, a similar time to Brunton's, deciding that they would have a Zoom call around the industry. We decided that we would do weekly Zoom calls. The first week would be for for converter members, and the second week would be for supplier members. And we still alternate those Zoom calls now. So it was pretty smart, off the blocks in mid-March.
And Angelica, obviously from FEFCO's point of view, you're obviously covering all of the primary European member nations, and each of the countries had their own remits. But how was FEFCO positioned in those early couple of weeks and the first month during lockdown in terms of trying to coordinate messaging for all of your member associations?
Well, I think the messaging was not the key point. The core point at the beginning of the crisis was that we had borders locked and we were classified as an essential industry and we needed to open the border. I remember there were news coming from Poland that there was a traffic jam of 60 kilometers of trucks only. And that was the very first big problem we had to solve. And that's where our connections, of course, to the EU Commission's in a way paid off, and we could solve the problem relatively quick. And also the national associations, of course, made pressure on their own governments. But as a follow-up of that, the situation in the different countries varies very much. I had a few phone calls yesterday to check what's going on in the various countries, and it varies from not doing much to having weekly webinars explaining the situation, interpreting what the new government rules are. So there is a huge variety in Europe, and we as FEFCO are not really able to coordinate that because governments at not only national but also local level vary tremendously in their decisions and in their daily news. So it's really something you have to watch on the local level. We have also in Europe the language problem. Michael, we don't have 50 states with one language. We have a lot of countries with many languages, and also the federal systems in some of the countries, like Germany, where I come from, where you have from state to state, from 16 different states, you have different regulations. So it's impossible for FEFCO to coordinate any action except when it comes to real European issues. But what we did, of course, we communicated on the benefits corrugated is bringing to the market as an essential industry. And that we did quite intensively. We switched immediately our campaign and changed the issues we were dealing with.
Larry, can I come to you now, please, from Tappy's point of view? And obviously, I appreciate that you are covering a huge remit within the sort of the pulp and paper and packaging industries. But how did Tappy adapt over those opening months of COVID? Because obviously, you know, it must have been a really challenging sort of time for you to try and be sending out messaging to such a broad industry sector in the North American market.
Yes, again, thank you for having us here. I ditto what Mike said earlier. Glad to be with you guys. Yeah, we have members in 66 countries, over 6,000 members, pushing 7,000 members now. So it was quite challenging to do these things. Right out of the chute, our team, our senior strategy team, ended up driving to Savannah, Georgia, right before it really hit, to basically get a strategic plan together. And had our marketing people put things together. We decided to send out weekly updates on the COVID-19. We decided to have huddle ups on a regular basis with our teams at Tappy to try to listen to our division managers, as well as all the other divisions we have that are volunteers. We communicated quite clearly, I think. And one of the toughest things when you average 20 to 25 face-to-face events a year around the world is to let them know that we made a decision to take our members' safety and our employee safety to heart. And we ended up not canceling, but postponing all of those this past fiscal year. So it's been very challenging, as I mentioned, but at the same time, we opened up a communication factor called, it was a movement called, we started with Stronger Together, Better Together, and now Moving Forward Together. And we got the positive things from our members to send in what they've done on a dime, spinning around, trying to make masks, trying to do face shields, how to produce more toilet paper, those kind of things. And so we now have that on our website. And I just encourage people from Specialty Paper Europe early this morning to send in what they've done, and we post what they've done, their company's name. So, you know, it hasn't all been doom and gloom by any stretch of the imagination, and we're pretty bullish. We already have 6 large face-to-face plans for 2021, and we have probably 20 or 30 of the things we're doing virtually. And we're going to do a little crossover on that. I think you'll talk about later in this.
And Angelica, if I could come back to you, please.
Yeah.
Within FEFCO, you have obviously your technical committee and you have your marketing committees, etc. how have those committees, have they really come to the fore and really assisted you with the sort of communication to all of the members? Because obviously it's been putting a lot of pressure on how an organization actually communicates with its members. Have you been relying quite heavily on all of your committees?
Well, I think it is a challenge, and it was a more technical challenge at the beginning to find the best program that didn't break down and had a stable connection. But we continued all our committee work online. It works very well. Our companies are reporting back. This is great with working online because it saves a lot of cost. It saves a lot of time. I had one of our suppliers on the phone the other day, and he said in the last half year, he has changed completely his way of working and is enjoying it because he's not sitting on the plane all the time. So I think we had a good structure before. We are continuing that structure with different means, but we are continuing as much as we can. And of course, we canceled as well, Larry, our big event, which we had planned for May in Amsterdam. And we are discussing at the moment how to work the next year with the big event we are planning there, the technical seminar, but no final decision is taken there yet. So we are preparing everything to have every option open. But in a way, the communication did not change much. We used as much the web-based communication as before, and the meetings are now taking place at home. What I'm personally missing is the to sit face to face. Of course, it's a nightmare to only look at your screen, but not at people.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting because I'd like to move back to AICC. Mike, your predecessor, Steve Young, who I know obviously is still very much in the saddle still with AICC, he said that we were certainly a handshake industry and a people industry. How's AICC adapted over the last few months in terms of trying to sort of engage and kickstart all of those various activities that you've been so strong at for many, many years?
Well, you're right. Steve coined that phrase, and he was, as I know is the vernacular there, spot on when he said that. And the difficulty is, of course, providing content, but providing it in a way that is delivered differently than AICC typically delivers it. We've always had a strong online presence. We've upped that game because of the circumstances. We now have, I believe, scheduled between the middle of September last month and August of 2021, about 50 online webinars for various content that will actually extend our reach into plants, because most of our in-person events are attended by the owners of the companies and the upper levels. Our education events tend to be more to the rank and file. We have more than 80 online classes. AICC's utilization of the online education exploded during this crisis, over 300% utility. The website visits were up 200%. But that said, we are planning on having our spring meeting, which will be at Amelia Island in Florida, April 26th to 28th. In person, we'll provide, I believe we'll have a hybrid component because some folks won't be traveling. We surveyed the membership. 67% of the members that responded, we had 160 replies, was pretty good for us. 67% of the members said they were likely or very likely to attend the event in April. So we see that as a coming out party and a chance to get back into the handshake business. The venue provides the opportunity to hold a lot of events outdoors, which I think will increase people's comfort level a great deal. But the key is to provide as much content as possible for all those that want to take advantage of it, whether it's COVID related, whether it's education related for the industry, or it's on the current events and happenings in the industry as well that are not COVID related, as we're calling it these days, COVID adjacent.
And Larry, it was very interesting just listening to Mike discussing there that he said that he felt that this was almost like a new era with which to engage deeper into organizations. So not traditionally just the CEOs and the plant owners. Is this something that TAPI's experiencing as well? Trying to drive down the information further into these organizations?
Very good point. Not only are we doing it with our members, we're doing it with our team, our staff, and we have huddle ups regular now, and it's so fun. We ask the 4 same questions. I won't get into them, but everybody's responding right now that, hey, I never got to communicate with so-and-so. They weren't in my area or whatever. And I'm the same way. I'm getting to go all the way down to, the guy that's the maintenance guy in our building that we own. And it's just, that part's been very nice. In the same way with the committee meetings we have and the online webinars, a lot more people are joining them than we ever intended to. I mean, one of the things, we had 350 people sign up for, and I didn't even know they were members, to be honest with you, because I just didn't know those folks by name at the time. But a lot of organizations are taking time to let this trickle down to other people that normally can't go to a face-to-face conference. So I think, in all, it's a big plus.
And Larry, do you think we could be in danger of almost being zoomed out and teamed out? How do you, as a trade association, how do you keep the content relevant? Because obviously, as individuals, we've all got bombarded with opportunities for webinars on new machinery and on paper process, et cetera, et cetera. So how do you go about keeping it really on point and relevant for the membership?
Question. Just a side note, we had one of our ex-board members, he sent an email in after we had our executive committee talk, our PIMA division, Paper Industry Management Division, and association, I'm sorry. And he said, how can we have 6,000 members across the world and only 40 showed up for this? And I sent him an email back and said, hey man, I was on 2 this morning and I was late getting on this one. So to be zoomed out, I think that's exactly a good statement. So what we're trying to do to keep it more relative, and Mike knows this, we go in together on this deal, but it's tech talks, short tech talks. We have 5 people that have machinery, and they have a certain amount of time. It's kind of like a new product showcase, if you will, when we're face-to-face. But this has been very well attended. We have some similar things like that for the pulp and paper industry as well. So it's got to be relevant, as you said. So we try to find out what's new and exciting out there. And also we ask people how they're dealing with the certain situation, the current situation that we have. And they're sharing things that are not competitive, non-competitive things, how they're getting through it. So it's pretty interesting.
Angelica, can I come to you, please, from FEFCO's standpoint? I'm sure you have had some quite interesting conversations with some of the sort of FEFCO sympathizer members who would be described as the machinery and service and suppliers. What feedback are they giving you in terms of availability for sharing their content with you to disseminate to the members?
Well, I don't think there's much difference before COVID or after COVID. There's a certain, they're using FEFCO as a sales tool. Let's be frank about it. We are providing a platform for them, which they can use in order to sell, to present what they have been doing. And they will be doing it in the same way, depending on whatever we decide to go for the technical seminar next year, which is quite an essential event for FEFCO, not so much from the monetary point of view, but more for keeping the structure with the sympathizer members, the platform that we have. So that's a big decision that we have to take of how to do that. But in general, I see a lot of things, to my surprise, continue the same way as before, but with different means. The big difference for me is it's much easier to organize meetings because people evidently have more time. They're not sitting on the planes and in the cars all the time. So even with our CEOs, we get a much easier chance to organize something quickly if needed.
Mm-hmm. So I'd like to now turn the conversation now slightly holistic, but I'm going to come to you, Mike, first, if I may. I'm very aware that we Sadly, have managed to lose Tim Gray on his connection. He's desperately trying to dial in, so we'll come to him towards the end. But Mike, let me ask you a question. What makes an association more relevant today than it's ever been before?
Well, I mean, it starts with the mission, which gives the association relevance right from the get-go and right out of the blocks. And in the case of AICC, since its inception in 1974, which I believe makes us one of the younger associations involved with this chat. But then it is the ability to bring the members together at a time when there is disruption in their businesses, in their personal lives, in everything that they know, which this pandemic has brought in this particular case. So the importance is you've already got credibility because you were serving your members with a mission and you were doing it well, or in the case of AICC, I believe we were doing it well. During this crisis, based on feedback that we're getting from the members, we have provided them with information that they've needed, either that we've gotten elsewhere or that we've generated, or created a forum where the members have shared information with each other. We've also created templates, a business interruption template, so that if a plant loses a machine center or has to go down because of a COVID outbreak, they can still get boxes out the door for their customers because they have a business plan in place to work with another AICC member that will take care of it for them. Kind of an outgrowth of First Pack, which is a longer concept that puts members together. The important thing is to have the credibility and then to have the content that keeps things relevant for the members, especially in an ever-changing world. AICC's fiscal year ended on June 30th. Our new one began on July 1st. Our renewals were running ahead of last year's. So that tells me that we're doing the right thing for our members. They are acknowledging that by the renewal rates being higher and us having to chase less members for their renewal, their intention to renew, but they get busy. So we feel pretty good about that. It's a confirmation that the relevance is continuing and expanding.
Okay, Larry, over to you. What do you feel makes TAPI more relevant than ever before?
It's always been knowledge and networking. We are the technical association for the pulp, paper, and packaging industry, and that's a big deal. And then 105 years of this. We just had our 105th birthday, September the 23rd. And I'm like Mike. We have certain segments of membership that are just jumping back in very quickly. We have some others that aren't so much. But we're still hanging in there with that. But I think it is this. This is the new frontier right now. Nobody's gone through anything like this in the whole world. And having that system that's been there, and Mike alluded to it, the track record they have, it's very important. And they want us to know that they want to know we're solid. We have to put platforms out there like we always have with new innovations. And trust me, this is a big innovation, new innovation that's come with COVID-19. We also just finished our 13th year in a row in the black, which I was scraping my nails across the chalkboard towards the end of our fiscal year, which ended August the 31st. But somehow or another, we were able to do that again. And I hope it's lucky 13 and not a bad sign. But when the new team, before the new team got here, it was 11 years in red ink. So we're really proud of our board of directors, our members, and our team here to stay like we are and becoming more important to our members.
And Angelica, I know that FEFCO's slightly different from AICC and TAPI in terms of the structure, as we were explaining earlier. But how does FEFCO use this COVID crisis to reinvent and make yourself even more relevant to the industry than it already is?
I don't really agree to your thesis. I think any associations always has this watchdog function. So we are there in order to react when there is a crisis, and we are doing that whether there is legislation coming from the Commission or from somewhere in the world. We have at the moment a couple of pieces in the legislation that we don't really like, and where we have to really fight to keep our products up. And a crisis like COVID gives us a chance to prove that we are well set, that we can react very quickly, which we did, and that we have to find new ways of working together and continuing what we are doing. But I don't think it's such a big deal for us as FEFCO, nor for our national associations, and that the importance did not really change. We were important before, I'm proud to say that, and I think we continue that way, keeping this watchdog function. I think that's my point of view.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Now, Mike, I'm going to ask effectively on behalf of you and Tappy and Larry, please, when Mike's had a chance to answer, maybe you could also give some viewpoints. But without committing to anything, are you able to give us any sort of indication as to how the plans are shaping up for Supercore Expo for next year?
I'd like to defer to Larry on that, because Larry is the managing partner of Supercore. I would prefer to give him the lead position, and I would like to support what he says.
Absolutely. Okay. Sorry, Larry, straight to you.
That's okay. That's okay. I thought he's passing the buck there. It scared me. I'm just kidding. Well, first of all, Supercore Expo, as all intentional purposes go right now, we're going to be in Orlando, Florida from August the 8th through August the 12th, 2021. What we're doing to help that cause, we don't expect to have 8,000 people there, because restrictions may still be from overseas or international travel. So we're preparing for that. We're strongly looking right now. We are vetting different companies that are going to offer a hybrid to the Supercore Expo. So it will be live, unless a tragedy happens that we can't see right now. And then this virtual or this hybrid, it's going to be a combination. It's pretty cool. People that can't come can go on this and look at it, look at the same exhibits, hear the same talks, the technical information that's put out there, and then they will have that left for I think about 30 days after the conference. So we're really trying to plan ahead. I told somebody the other day, I just waited I feel like I'm in the Twilight Zone and Rod Serling's around the corner going to walk in, start talking. But again, this is just so out in left field what's going on with us today. We're trying to stay ahead of the curve. But, with our good partner, AICC, and Mike and I, we sweat bullets trying to work this thing together. So we're planning on it happening. And Tappy's also has 5 other large ones that we're planning on happening in the year 2020. So I'll leave Mike for some comments.
Well, to add to what Larry said, Dan, the important thing to note is the confidence the industry has, not just in the industry itself, and things are going pretty well for the industry right now, but also in the event itself, Supercore Expo. The current exhibitors at 220 and 141,000 apologize for those of you out of the United States. I don't convert square feet. That is a stronger position than at 10 months point was prior to the last Supercore in 2016. So we're in a better spot with our exhibitors and their expectations. With a show that's been postponed from September to August of 2021, that just shows you how confident the industry is in itself and the industry is in the event. And that's the most important message I think that we can pass at this point in time. All the things that Larry said are of course important, because we want to serve the exhibitors, we want to serve the attendees, and it's a monumental challenge. And Larry's team has been doing a yeoman's job of staying out in front of everything that's been thrown at them, and AICC's team has been supporting them as best we can. We're looking forward to a great event.
Good. Now, I think we've got Tim on the line. Tim, can you hear us loud and clear?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, Tim, that's great. Well, listen, Tim, sorry we lost you for a few moments there, but we were touching on how the trade associations have been trying to adapt during the last few months. And Tim, you very successfully hosted an online conference for your members 2 weeks ago. Tell us a little bit about how you felt the attendance rates compared to previous events in real life.
Well, to be fair, we are a virtual association. We don't work from one centralised office. We never have. The executive committee is a group of unpaid volunteers who give freely of their time. We only physically meet at conference and the occasional committee meeting. So our committee members are spread all over the country. So meeting virtually has become the norm. Rather than meeting centrally at Manchester Airport, we jump on a Zoom call. The biggest challenge has been maintaining the close-knit sharing and networking culture of the SPA remotely. How do you do that remotely? Well, just regular contact. We've already hosted our first full-blown online conference earlier this month with time-relevant, industry-specific presentations, guidance and help from our Ring of Defence retained specialists, supplier spotlights, and even live on-screen polls. This event attracted 100 attendees. It was technically challenging, but it was delivered without a hitch and was universally well received. That said, it's not a permanent substitution for a physical conference. We're a tight-knit and sociable association that thrives on networking, socialising, pressing the flesh, having a drink together. So my own personal opinion is that we'll be meeting virtually, certainly for the next 18 months, but then hopefully back to normal.
It's as high as it's ever been.
Good. Well, I would like to thank all of my panel speakers today. We've run through just over 33 minutes. So Mike, Larry, Angelica, Tim, thank you so much. And on behalf of the industry, keep up this hard work because we need to be led from the front. So all of you, thank you so much indeed. It's an absolute pleasure having you online. And we will look forward to catching up with you, hopefully, in the not too distant future. Thank you, one and all.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dan.
Thanks,
Thank you,
bye-bye.
colleagues.
Hello, and welcome to the second track on week one of the ConneXion webinar series. In this particular session, we're going to be looking at the future of high-quality post-print. Everyone's talking about digital. Everyone's talking about how single-pass digital is getting close to matching litho. And what we want to do here today is have a conversation with some leading protagonists within the Flexo post-print market. I'm delighted to say that we're being joined by Anthony Whiteside from Absolute. We're being joined by David Burgess from JB Machinery. We're with Scott Miller from BCM Inks. We're with Michael Donnett from Koenig & Bauer, and also John Burgess from Pamarco. So, gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us today. Michael, I'd like to pass the first question to you as a machinery manufacturer. Can you give us a little bit of an update as to what's been going on in technological terms over the last 5 years or so that has really propelled high-quality post-print to where it is today?
Yes, thanks for having me, and I would like to give you some ideas what I have, what brought Flexo Postprint really forward the last years. Of course, on first hand, you have to mention that it's servo drive technology. All the state-of-the-art machines today have real servo drive technology driving each single shaft by one. servo drive. Then it's the vacuum transfer, wiping out the transfer rolls inside the machine. And then, of course, today we have Analox roll change systems. We can apply the right Analox roll to the substrate within 2 minutes. And we have several Analox rolls within every print unit. So in case you are doing brown boxes or white boxes or coated paper, uncoated paper, you always can choose the right Analox roll within minutes, which decades ago has been, you had to dismantle almost the entire machine. But today this is all going very fast and very quick. And this helped a lot to get the registration, to get the correct register in multicolor HQPP printing, and therefore give Flexo Postprint a big move forward to come close to offset lamp. Yeah.
So I'd like to move to the individual components now that create high quality postprint. So let's start by looking at the inks. Scott, I'd like to come to you now, please. Can you give us a little bit of update as to what's been happening from the scientific standpoint as to how inks have been developing over the last few years, and maybe a few things that we might be getting excited to look forward to over the coming 2 to 3 years?
Thank you, Dan. We appreciate this opportunity. One of the biggest, you've over the course of the last 5 years, there's been some major improvements in both preprint, how the plates are imaged, how the ink is being applied, and all that's allowed us to develop an ink that's more soluble. The challenges we had in the past with some of the older equipment was getting that ink to dry properly, especially when you're printing really high-end printing with fine screens where you're trying to keep that ink dry, to not dry on plate. With the new technology that's out there and a finer ink film thickness and all the bells and whistles on this equipment, we are now producing very small dots at a very high line screen. And what that has allowed us to do is make our inks more soluble. So by making our inks more soluble, we're able to keep that really fine dot clean without having to stop and clean the presses all the time, and that's allowed the gamut to be raised in in the image, which is getting closer and closer to litho.
And Scott, in terms of, because you mentioned color gamut there, obviously all box makers are chasing the holy grail of trying to match brand house colors with process colors. What's been happening over the last couple of years in terms of the sort of blending and mixing technologies that allow for the replication of those important brand colors?
Well, yeah. So with there's a big push for G7 is the biggest push that's been out there, and that is so that allows everybody to really print in a similar gamut. So what from the ink side what we have done is you have to stay very close to specific hue angles, and by hitting those hue angles with our process ink set, we are very we have an ink set that is in compliance with G7, so everybody's getting a very similar gamut with to print within.
And John, if we look now at how the importance of analogs now in terms of the transfer of the inks, what developments have been taking place in the analogs market over the last few years that is going to effectively help us get to that game-changing situation?
Yeah, thanks, Dan, for letting us take part in this. Well, Michael certainly stole some of my thought process on the analogs, and that's with the turrets. These newer machines with the turrets allow us now to pinpoint exactly what volume is needed for each job, and it gives a lot more flexibility to the printer than years gone by, when it was really all about compromise, because 8 to 10 to 12 hours to change an analog roll just wasn't in the cards when we're changing jobs 10 and 12 times a day. The analoxers have obviously, we've seen our screen counts, the average screen count we're engraving increase from somewhere around 180, which was about 12 years ago, 15 years ago. And I would say our average screen count now is surprisingly still low, about 400 for corrugated. But for high quality post print, we're seeing a lot of screen counts in the 600 and 800 line screen, and even above 1,000, which many, many years ago, nobody had ever thought you'd see 1,000 line analogs in a post printer for corrugated. Of course, with that becomes a lot of additional discipline that's needed. You don't have the huge bucket just to put the ink in and expect it to come out. So you lose 10% of the volume off an 800 line screen, and all of a sudden you're not getting ink densities. So cleaning, wash-up systems have to be maintained to a lot better standard than they have been in the past. But we're certainly seeing lower volumes, thinner ink films, of course, with most presses, or all presses really now, being equipped with Dr. Blade chambers that wipe very, very efficiently. We're only carrying the ink that's in the cell. There's really no surface ink getting to the plate. That's a combination of the thin cell wall on the analogs because of the way the laser beam cuts the cell, and then the wiping action of the chamber. You've really got to dial in the volume to understand exactly what you're putting down on the paper. And then the last development has really been the hybrid cells. So we're now doing a lot of cells which have got this extended design, and they're shallower, they're flatter, and they allow a better ink release at finer line screens, so we can match a volume with a higher line screen and give better print fidelity, and also be able to actually maintain the rolls for future print. So I think those are the biggest advantages or biggest changes we've seen the last few years.
And John, you mentioned something earlier in your answer there. You were talking about effectively the cleaning and the maintenance of the analogs. There's been a lot of development, hasn't there, in terms of the actual cleaning equipment and the processes for analogs. Give us a little overview there as to some of the technologies that have been made available to mainline box plants now.
Well, it has changed tremendously over the last 10 years. People were very much used to using a surfactant in the wash-up system and then getting in with a brass or a stainless steel brush to clean the rolls. We've moved on a long way now from soda blast cleaners, both on press and off press, to now many of our customers, particularly the high-end customers, are using ultrasonic cleaners, both there is a on-press design, which is just gaining some acceptance in the marketplace, and off-press. We also have this cleaning blanket, which is a blanket that fits around the print cylinder and actually abrades the analogs roll, but doesn't wear it. It's got some fine fibers that get into the analogs and clean it. And really, it comes down to a routine where you've got everyday cleaning, once a week cleaning, a monthly cleaning, and then greater than that. But certainly you've got to be very careful with the advent of the turrets, just taking an analogs roll offline, dropping it under the turret and leaving it dirty and expecting that when you bring it back up for the next job, that it's going to print just like it did before, because it isn't. So that is really, I think that's one of the biggest concerns I have with the turret. I think is a fantastic development, but people's propensity just to out of sight, out of mind could really come back and hurt.
Anthony, I'd like to come to you now, if I may, because John was talking there very much about changes in mindset in terms of regular maintenance, etc. Give us a little update in terms of what's been going on with the chamber systems and the blading systems now for the high quality Flexo post print. What developments have taken place that really sort of puts us onto this holy grail of the ultimate in high quality post print?
Well, thank you,
And
Dan.
then,
I'd start by saying that obviously getting absolute perfection on the blade surfaces so that we get perfectly flat blades is a really, really good start. That sounds very straightforward, but is a relatively easy win if the systems are in place to achieve that. And just simple things. It's quite apparent that we have many suppliers in this industry, and they are using similar diameters of Anilox rollers, but they're actually doctoring with different sized profiles. We know there's an optimal angle to doctor an Anilox roller, and yet we still haven't got a standard across the board that says that at this diameter, we should use this profile to give us that consistent angle. There are many different profiles, and they all give us slightly different result. So what we're looking for is a basic mechanical standard that means that they're all set the same, but once
okay, I think we've oh, okay. Anthony, I think we've lost you there for a second. You wouldn't mind just repeating that last statement?
Okay, but when we've got that standardization where we've got a consistent angle that everybody agrees with, we can then produce the same product with the same ink set on different machines and get the same result. So that would be a really nice, easy win to start with. But I think on a longer term picture, we're seeing a development of several specialist ink circuit providers that really mean we can really own that ink circuit. And obviously, we're talking about high quality post prints here. Our industry is moving from a point where you sold boxes for protection, and that was the primary focus, and then you put some print on it. If you can't produce a box that isn't protecting the product, you're not off first base. We're actually now selling brands on boxes. And if we're going to do that, we need some real color consistency. And that involves not just pumping ink or just doctoring ink or providing an Anilox. That involves having a whole circuit that monitors and maintains that ink so that throughout the life of the job, we're producing an absolutely consistent product all the way through.
And Anthony, as an industry, we've been very good at almost wasting ink at the end of each job, and the wash-up process, etc. What strides and what developments are being made to help get a control on that? You were talking about ink transfer and ink circulation systems. So give us an overview of what's been happening there.
Well, certainly our industry, I think, is more aware of the environmental obligations of organizations than some other industries. And we are making great strides at that side of it. So, there was a time when a quick wash-up was considered about how quickly you could push ink and water through a system to clear it out, and that regardless of what was lost. Now it's much more focused on we need to recover the maximum amount of ink we can do. And then obviously, because there's not much ink in the system, the wash-up's relatively straightforward. So it's a win-win. Not only can we achieve a quick result, but now we can achieve a result that optimizes our ink recovery, minimizes our losses, and saves everybody money and gives us environmental credibility. So I think there's a lot on that side that is really exciting. And it's a dual situation. We see a lot of the new machinery manufacturers buying heavily into this technology. But of course, when we have machines that are 25 and 30 years old in the industry, providing that on new equipment won't give us the result we want. We then have to go back and upgrade the existing equipment that's in the market because we can't wait 30 years to do it.
Yeah. Now, David, can we come to you now? In terms of, we've been looking so far at what's been going on with inks and with Anilox and the transfer with the blading onto the plates. Obviously, the way that we're printing in Flexo with the photopolymer plates, invariably there's going to be the opportunity for particles to get onto the plate. So what are we doing about that in terms of trying to ensure that we're not getting hickeys and repeat marks in the high quality post-print image?
Well, I think maybe the first thing we need to do is take a step back and say that this whole change to high quality post-print production has seen a whole change in the mindset of everybody. John mentioned cleaning. Everybody's going to mention cleaning, maintenance. I think from where we were in the corrugated industry, which was 25 years ago, we were just pumping boxes out, to where we are now, where we're seeing high quality printing presses sitting in virtual clean rooms. That's going to do nothing but accelerate the growth of high quality post-print. You know, one of the obvious issues that we deal with on a daily basis is paper dust and paper fiber, because we're printing on paper. And naturally, as you go to finer and finer screen counts, you get to inks that might get tacky, then you do start to see the images flawed, because you're getting hickeys, you're getting particles, you're getting dust, dirt, debris being transferred to the printed job. And I think everyone will agree, it's very difficult to print 4-color process at 145 line, but it's really difficult to print a heavy solid, a flood coat solid on a high holdout paper without any hickeys, any marks or anything. So there's a couple of technologies that have been developed. One of them employs a head that's traversing across the printing plate and continually cleaning the plate whilst we're printing. The advantage of that, obviously, is that we're not experiencing downtime to stop the machine and clean the plates, which is a huge level of downtime in most press rooms. We're just continually cleaning and removing that dust, dirt, and debris. We're actually stopping that dust, dirt, and debris being transferred back to the analogs, which does help keep the ink film thickness very consistent throughout the run. And we also see that by using this technology, we do improve the color consistency, because instead of the ink layering on the printing plate, we've got a single laminar layer of ink that's sitting on the plate. So that's one technology. The other technology, let the plates get dirty and then clean them, to use a very simple system that basically stops feeding sheets, cleans a printing press on press. It's an auto clean. It doesn't involve personnel, because let's face it, the job of cleaning plates is an awful job for the press crews. They hate it. So if you can automate that process, you're better off. So if we can automate that process, clean the plates in 5-6 minutes, you'll have a few waste sheets when you start up again, but you're now way more productive, and obviously the press is able to run at speed and not load up again with hickeys, etc. But we're also seeing people putting, there's far more of the sheet cleaners being employed, and as I mentioned, I think the people are realizing that these machines need to be well away from the corrugator, because that's the source of dust, dirt, and debris. So they're being put in clean rooms. So I think we're actually learning from digital. The digital generally is found in a clean room. I think people are finally realizing, hey, they may have something here. Maybe we ought to do that with a Flexo press also.
Now, I'd like to ask a question to both you, David, and also Scott. And this is specifically with reference to the very rapid progress that's being made in terms of recycled test liners. So obviously it's huge in Europe. It's starting to gain significant market space in the North American market. But Scott, how do you as an ink manufacturer handle the fact that we are moving towards recycled liners, which invariably is slightly more porous? So how are you handling those developments, Scott?
Yeah, so the challenge with the recycled liner, a couple things. You're getting sometimes more absorption, and coverage is decreased. So we're having to put some additives when we're running up against these recycled liners. That's allowing a little more ink to be released off the analogs roll or plate. I'm just trying to increase that ink film thickness slightly to help with the troublesome or the issues that you're dealing with when you're dealing on the recycled liners. So we're basically trying to increase that ink film thickness slightly just by trying to get more ink to release off the plate, more ink to come off that analog roll.
And David, in terms of once the printed image is now on that corrugated sheet, you've got the option there for drying. So talk us through those various options that you've got.
Well, first of all, I think Scott's absolutely right. We are seeing a lot more porosity. And I've been definitely noticing around the country that people running a lot of recycle are running much higher analogs volumes. The analogs volumes, instead of maybe being a 7.5 BCM, we're seeing a lot of 8.5 BCM. As to go back to John, what he was talking about with the ability to quick change analogs, with the high quality printers, they have the ability to change analogs. And let's face it, the vast majority of that really high end work is being done on semi-coated and fully coated paper. So that really doesn't play into it. Where it plays into it is with, let's call it a hybrid press, where one day they're printing on craft, one day they're printing on white top, and then for 15 minutes, they're printing on a semi-coated paper, and they want everything to work out fine for them. So that's really one of the struggles, one of the difficulties that we have, because typically they're going to set the machine up with the higher volume analoxes, because that's where the majority of the work is, and they don't have the ability to quick change. When it comes to the recycled papers and the porosity, dryers definitely help, and that's a message we've been trying to get out there, is that when you use infrared energy to dry the ink, we're actually drying a lot of the ink on the surface. We're trapping that ink on the surface of the sheet before it has a chance to soak into the porosity of the paper. So the image is actually a better definition image. It's got better color strength. It's not allowed to sort of fade out into the sheet, and it's got a better gloss level. So we've also got a lot of customers, let's say in the wine box industry, that environmentally they're being asked to print on craft. It's a feel-good thing. So in many cases, what they're doing is they're laying down a background using maybe a titanium white, drying it, and then overprinting that with a color, whether it be red, green, orange, blue, whatever it might be, whatever the brand color is, so that image really holds out and sits out on the paper. We're seeing a lot of that out on the West Coast.
Michael, I'd like to come to you now, please, from the machinery manufacturer's point of view. We've certainly seen, obviously, disruption in the marketplace. Order lengths are getting shorter. Box plants are having to process more orders in a day. What are your thoughts in terms of the actual equipment itself? Are we looking at a future that is just going wider and faster, or do you think the current format that we're operating at the moment is still got a decent shelf life? Michael, you need to switch on your microphone, Michael.
Okay, sorry for that. What we have seen in the last years is that the machine size, when we look at the rotary die cutters, for example, we have seen that machine size moved from, in average, 2.4 meters to 2.8 meters today. So the machines became bigger, they became faster, and due to the fact that we are running shorter runs, the machine have now the capability of setup while running. If you now look on what is running on these machines, on these 2.4, 2.8 meter wide rotary die cutters, then you will find in a lot of plants that the average board size is 1.3, 1.4, 1.5 square meters per feet. So we are not, at the moment, we are not really making use of the complete width and the complete feet length of the machine. And Also, we heard about drying, we heard about analoxes giving the right amount of ink to the machines, and we maybe we also discussed something about inline and offline installations and processing. Very often the maximum machine speed is not the declining factor. Quite often it's really the amount of ink. Are there the right dryers in? Is the right dryer capacity integrated in the machine? And so this, and how about the die forms? Are they giving enough waste, or are they shooting the waste away in such a way that the machine can run at full speed? So these are the limiting factors at the moment. So I personally do not see the machine speed as a limiting factor, but we also have seen that in the last years, Flexo printers, high quality Flexo printers went up to 14,000 kicks per hour. We have now rotary die cutters which run more than 10,000. They run 12,000 feet maximum per hour. So the machine, as a machine manufacturer, they give room to that idea. They followed this idea, and now the other limiting factors have to be overcome.
John, let me come to you now, as obviously you've got a huge amount of experience in the global corrugated industry in terms of the overall print process, but there is still this ongoing whole argument of inline versus offline. Can you give us your view on what you think is the best for achieving the ultimate in high quality post print?
I think that's like asking how long is a piece of string, because everybody's going to give you a slightly different answer. I think both have their place, and I think it all comes down to the quality of the people, the quality of the equipment, and how the plant is operated as to which works best for the individual. I think there's a huge misnomer in our industry that to do high quality post print, you have to be running 133, 145 line screen plates. You have to have 800 or 1,000 line analoxes. I think you can do some high quality post print with 250 line analoxes and 65 and 85 line screen plate if the plants are dedicated and disciplined enough to do it, if the board is good, if the inks are good, and they can wipe the analogs right. So I don't think there is a one size fits all type answer to that. I think a lot of it comes down to the quality of the crews and the quality of the equipment. Certainly with the equipment that's being sold now, that's coming into the market, the sky is the limit. But there's an awful lot of latitude left in the older equipment if people treat it correctly and are educated on what needs to get done. Obviously, we see upgrades in old equipment with dryers, and then we'll have customers coming to us wanting to know what to do next with the analog rolls rather than just maintaining the status quo of what they've run for the last 10 years. They're prepared to think outside the box, to challenge the norm a little bit. And I think it's fair to say every one of them runs into some problems along the way, but it's how you tackle the problem and then how you go beyond it and solve your problem. I think that's the major part for me.
Mm-hmm. Anthony, I know that your organization is a massive supporter of the EFIA, the European Flexographic Industry Association, and EFIA just held their annual awards virtually 2 weeks ago.
Right.
So, Anthony, in North America, there's Clemson University, where there's obviously all the opportunities for young students to learn the art of flexo printing and all of the technical aspects of corrugated box making. Can you tell me a little bit about what EFIA gets up to in terms of promoting the industry? Because, you know, it's not the sexiest of industries. And I do worry that as each generation goes on, this sort of mystical black art of high quality printing could sort of retire itself. So do you have a short overview for us in terms of what EFIA gets up to in promoting and educating?
Yeah, EFIA have put a huge amount of effort into working for a completely online training program for Flexo printing, covering all the different aspects of Flexo printing. They've done it in conjunction with the FTA in Europe, which is also a flexible packaging organization. And I think EFIA have really pushed the academy, as they call it, to bring forward, every time you become a member of EFIA, you get offered free places for your students to go online on your apprentices, and the people in the organisation in the box plants who are just starting on that process. I do think it's an interesting question that you raised, because of course in previous decades there were several specialist print colleges all over Europe, and a lot of those have closed, and that's really seen as something that's not going to come back particularly quickly. I think it's much more interesting, though, to look at where that's going to go in the future. Bring a lot about artificial intelligence. Obviously, Industry 4.0 is making progress. And in reality, when I look at other industries, such as the offset industry, technology that they're using, and increasingly in the flexible packaging sector, I genuinely believe that these Internet of Things will get us to a point where the next generation of machines won't involve guys standing at the side of a machine and checking inks and making sure the sheets are feeding through correctly and keeping an eye on the machine. These guys are going to be what all our sons and daughters are doing now. They're going to want to sit in front of a PLC in an air-conditioned room and monitor all the sensors and the scanning equipment and all the equipment required so that that machine can run perfectly and optimally. And if it needs adjustment, we're seeing it coming before it actually happens. And of course, then you have a planned maintenance schedule where you do go down and do a physical intervention, but it is about controlling all those variables from a distance, not having a guy who has that black art, that knowledge that seems somewhat vague, that's hard to pass on in a technology manner. It's going to become much more of a science-based piece of equipment, much more of an artificial intelligence-based piece of equipment than it currently is, in my belief. And I think that's where we will go. So these guys will still train with EFIA, but they won't be training on the basics of Flexo process. They'll be training on how the systems work to control those variables. It's called Flexo because it's flexible. That's both its beauty and its bane. It means you've got a lot of variables that you have to control very well, but it does give you lots of opportunity to do things that other processes can't do. So we've got to control those variables better. And I think that's the key through technology.
And Michael,
Totally
Anthony
agree.
was talking there about the Internet of Things and how Industry 4.0 is going to help shape the future of the future corrugated box plant. What work is being done from the machinery organizations in terms of integrating with the plant system, the software companies, the data management, analysis of ink, etc. So what work is being done in those fields? Oh, Michael, we've lost your speaker again. Microphone. Okay, we've lost Michael there. Does Scott? How about? Can you jump in on that for us? Because one of the elements there we were talking about, obviously, data management and integrity of the dosing of the inks and the feeding of the data backwards and forwards from the machine to the plant management system. So what sort of interactions are you having with the various software companies?
Well, we actually are a big proponent of monitoring and managing both color and inks. So from a color perspective, you're seeing a lot more color management software press side, spectrophotometry press side, and monitoring and adjusting color press side. We spoke earlier about brand specific colors. Colors are becoming more and more critical. So you're starting to see a lot more instrumentation and software being utilized press side to ensure color consistency. You can't have color consistency with an ink if you're not monitoring both the pH level and the viscosity too. So that all comes into place. You're seeing more and more equipment out there that is, we're not relying on the press operator or helper to take, pH readings and adjust pH. It's all being done automatically now. So with that automatic dosing or adjusting or controlling temperature of the ink press side, you're also controlling the color, which is the most critical aspect of the ink from the brand side.
Mm-hmm. Michael, have we got you back online now?
I'm back. Sorry for that. Lost the mic again. Okay.
No problem. So, Michael, just to give you the opportunity to give us your views on what's happening in terms of integration with all the various software and the plant scheduling systems, etc.
Yes, what we are working on is a lot on we call it, or it's called Internet of Things or Industry 4.0. So a lot of all these machines, they're having a lot of sensors and a lot of data which are coming out from the machine. And the invention is to find a way to filter all these data in such a way that you can make some findings from it. And working on, for example, a predictive maintenance, giving the plant a signal saying, look, we found something in our machine which doesn't look normal, and looking in our database, we found that this or this part might fail within the next 1, 2, 3, 4 weeks. So we recommend you to give to put this part aside to have a replacement in case you get a failure. This will be the coming thing. So not to wait until the machine breaks down, but to give to receive a message in time, so you can react upfront. You can act, not react, and this is the important thing for that.
And David, can I come to you now, please? Obviously, with your experience in terms of the ancillary equipment within these high quality Flexo post-print machines, one area that the digital industry pushes quite hard is talking about exact quantities, variable data, etc. And that obviously puts big pressure on a box plant because it's about data management. But even in high quality Flexo post-print, you've still got the same issue that as an industry, we're trying to drive down waste. So we don't want to be producing excessive run. We don't want to be producing 10% overage, for example. So when you look at some of the systems, the camera systems that are checking and ejecting bad sheets, or it's got a hickey, etc., it's a huge mindset change, isn't it, for the operators, because they're now having to work with data, not just with job orders, right?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. But I think our job as a manufacturer of equipment, whether it be peripheral equipment or the actual machine itself, is, as far as we can go, to remove the operator from the equation. I think that's what Anthony was getting at. For too long, the industry's been a touch and feel industry. And if we can bring in all these processes and make them predictable, whether it be drying, plate cleaning, pump pressures, ink stability, give it pH and viscosity, the more we can make this predictable, repeatable, then we can start to minimize waste, and we can run at 10,000 sheets an hour, and we can run as long as we want to from beginning to end of the press run. You know, these machines, as Michael knows, are extremely expensive now. Press downtime is incredibly expensive. And the idea of having a press going down every 10 minutes to either clean a plate or to fix a jam, or, you know, that's where all of a sudden we're going to become non-competitive. We do whatever we can do the operator for the equation. Yes, we're always going to have some human interface, but let's take as much data as we can, use it, let's repeat, let's make this a very precise, predictable process that repeats day after day. If we can get to that point, I think we can take on any printing process because we've got speed and we've got consistency going for us.
Well, gentlemen, thank you so much indeed. It's been a fascinating 45 minutes discussing high-quality post-print with you. I think probably the takeaways are going to be trying to understand, as the plant of the future, how we position Flexo in terms of the machinery itself. We understand that all of the integral parts are becoming more and more sophisticated, from servo drive, from ink metering to transfers to plates, etc. So 2 or 3 of you actually mentioned this point about putting the HQPP machine into pretty much a clean room environment, and certainly something for the industry to consider. But obviously we also have to never lose sight of the fact that we're printing on paper. It is a dusty and unfortunately slightly dirty raw material. And I feel like you do that the future is still very, very solid and rosy for Flexo Postprint. So gentlemen, thank you so much indeed. I know that you're all going to be wandering around ConneXion, the virtual expo. So I'm sure that it would be great for any of the attendees who would like to engage with any of you on any of the topics that we've discussed. They'll be able to find you on the showground. So gentlemen, thank you so much indeed. And we will look forward to seeing you on the showground. Take care.
Thanks, Dan.
Thanks, Dan.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dan.